Hi, everyone. My name is Anjie Vichayanonda, and I am the founder of Leg Up Legal. We provide a mentoring program to connect pre-law students to attorney mentors so that they can learn more about the legal profession before deciding whether or not they want to pursue law school. And we started doing these Zoom meetups to just connect all sorts of people in the legal profession, from pre-law students to current law students and young lawyers, and bring in guest speakers to talk to you guys about topics that might help you on your legal career journey. So I wanted to do this particular topic today because I've been getting tons of questions from my undergrads about, okay, summer's coming up. How do I get some legal experience? How do I start interacting with attorneys? So I wanted to just plant some seeds in your mind today about ways that you can go about doing that. There's so many opportunities that I didn't know about when I was an undergraduate student, because when I was an undergrad, I actually had no idea I wanted to go to law school. So I was a business major. I was focused in marketing and advertising and really thought I wanted to be one of those people on Mad Men. So I went and joined an advertising agency, worked there for a couple of years, and then decided I wanted to go to law school. So I didn't even know about all these programs at the undergraduate level, but I have spent a lot of time talking to students who have participated in some of these programs that we're going to talk about today. So I do, want to open up your eyes to all the possibilities that are out there, because it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about what types of jobs people can qualify for at the undergraduate level. So I really, really want to just answer all of the questions that you guys have. So please feel free to ask really, candid questions. No topic is off limits. Feel free to just jump in the chat box, or just jump on camera and ask away while I'm going through this. But I think I want to just get started in just talking generally about what types of opportunities are available out there for college level students and recent graduates. Just to let you know, I think by and large, most people, when they think about getting legal experience, they think about going to work for like a law firm or a court or something like that. And those law firm experiences at the undergraduate level are really, really rare. So there's just not a lot of college internships available. Most of the time, law firms start their lowest level of recruiting at law students. So you have to generally be in law school before you can apply for those internships. But don't be disheartened. There are a few law firms now that offer sort of these pipeline programs that allow you to sort of get a glimpse of what it's like to work in a law firm. So there are a few that will offer college level internship or fellowship programs, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But I just want you to also know that there's just a huge variety of other types of legal jobs out there. So, there's judicial internships. So, for the United States, we have two systems of courts. We have federal courts and we have state courts. So, and both federal courts and state courts may offer undergraduate internships. And maybe you have never ever thought about the life of a judge or wanting to be a judge or anything like that, but I can assure you that even if you have no intention of ever becoming a judge, interning for a judge will help you see and understand so much more about what lawyers do in the courtroom than even interning for a law firm, because the judges see different types of lawyers on different types of cases every single day. So you're just going to get a ton of exposure to the litigation process. So if you think that you might ever be interested in litigation, that is like going to court, arguing in front of a judge, advocating for a client, all the things that a lot of people think is quintessential lawyering, then judicial internships are a wonderful opportunity to build relationships with the judge, to get to see good lawyering, to get to see bad lawyering, to see just to see the broad variety of different types of cases that judges see. So, there's civil courts, and then there's criminal courts, and then there might be even specialized courts like probate courts, family courts, tax courts. So there's really kind of the wide gamut of all sorts of different courts that you could work for. And so if you are interested in doing a judicial internship, you could search for both federal courts, and state court internships. Now, and municipal courts. So at your local city level, like if you get a traffic ticket, you have to go down to the municipal court or the superior court. There are these smaller city courts that oftentimes law students don't apply for those types of positions because they're wanting to apply for in positions with larger courts. So a lot of the smaller courts, municipal courts, superior courts, will take college level interns. And I mean, some of the larger courts do too. Like I know the Northern District of Texas, which is a federal court, does take college level interns. And Dallas County, so at the state court level, you know, Dallas County does take interns as well. I know there's actually even a Supreme Court college internship, which is very, very prestigious, but right now it's on hold because of COVID. But I did include that in the list of opportunities in case, you know, some of you might be freshmen or sophomores and might be able to take advantage of those opportunities later on. So there's a whole ton of different courts that you could possibly go intern for. And honestly, I would say just call up the local chambers. So every single court will have a clerk or chambers that a number that you can call, or, you know, you could even email the clerk and just ask, like, do you have any undergraduate internships available? Sometimes they'll have existing standing programs. Sometimes they won't. But you know what? If you call up the judge and just express that you're a college student, you're interested in learning about courts and how they work, and you really would love to just shadow them for a day or do something like that, most judges are very, very open to that. So shadowing a lawyer is really hard because most of the time, the things that lawyers do, we have to keep our clients' confidentiality. So shadowing is not near as common in lawyer land as it is like for medicine or other disciplines. But shadowing a judge is relatively easy because most of the things that judges do are public. So the judges may be much more open to you shadowing them. So even if they don't have internships available, they may have shadowing opportunities, or they might just let you. I know a lot of courts right now are like live streaming their hearings. So you could even watch some of those hearings online if you want, just to be able to see what being in a courtroom is like. Then there's also other opportunities that you might not know of are fellowships. So there are these very prestigious fellowship programs for people who are interested in law. There's a couple of them that are just super, super well known. So I hit a lot of those examples in the handout. So there's the Coro Fellowship, which is a fellowship for public affairs. And the Coro Fellowship is very prestigious. It's like a 9-month program, so it's long. It's not just a summer, but they will put you in various placements with people who are high up in either nonprofit organizations or city organizations. So you might be in the mayor's office, or you might be, following a politician. But basically, you know, the Coro Fellowship partners with a bunch of different organizations to put you in high-level placements so that you can really get to know more things about public affairs. So if you think you might be interested in public affairs, public policy, that type of thing, Coro is a wonderful opportunity for you to start getting to know a little bit more about that world. And I just want to let all of you know, it's totally fine if you have no idea what these things mean. And if you have no exposure to like public affairs, public policy, anything like that, totally okay. What I would do though, is I would look at the website. I would look through some of the past fellows. So, you know, you can find lists of who's participated in the program before. I would reach out to them on like LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever you want to find them. And then I would just ask them like, hey, would you be willing to talk to me for like 15 minutes about your experience in this program? What did you learn? What was it like? I've had a bunch of people who are interested in Coro, and I know a few people who are alums of the Coro program. So I've introduced the students to the prior participants. And I think after actually talking to somebody who's participated in it, it comes to life for you. So you'll understand it so much better, and you'll be able to figure out like, yeah, okay, I'm interested in that, or no, I would not want that at all. So if you don't know what the programs are, don't just write them off because you don't know. The most important thing to do is to just start learning more about this world. There are hundreds and hundreds of different types of legal jobs out there. And, there are things that I never thought would interest me. But then when I talk to somebody who's, in that practice area and they're passionate about it, they love the work, then I'm like, oh, maybe I would have liked doing that. So don't just write off any of these opportunities. I would definitely check them all out and just see, what might interest you, and contact some of the people who have gone through it before and try to see what they are. So the second one is the Lex Fellowship. Now, the Lex Fellowship is one that you have to pay for. And I know a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that because it is very expensive. So, it is an amazing program and I've heard amazing things about it. People who have gone through the program have really enjoyed it, but I understand if you don't have that kind of money to pay for it. I think the program last year was like $5,500 for the DC program, and they usually have one abroad, which is even more expensive, but I don't know if they're doing that during COVID. But the Lex Fellowship allows you to not only learn more about the actual substance of writing. So like they have a writing tutor who will actually teach you how to do legal writing so that you can do certain assignments, and you will rotate around a ton of different law firms. So you'll get to go spend some time in lots of different law firms, talking to their partners and associates and learning more about different areas of the law. And I think that's what makes the fellowship so worthwhile, is just because you get so much exposure to so many different people. But it is a paid program. So the Archer Fellowship is a very well-known one where people will go to Washington, D.C. and basically intern on the Hill. And so if you're interested in, being in public policy, or if you're interested in working in Washington, D.C., Archer is an amazing program, and I would highly recommend that you look into it. The SEO Law Fellowship is a program, I think you can only apply to it if you've already been accepted to law school. So if you've already been accepted, but you haven't started yet, I think you can do the SEO Law Fellowship in the summer, right before you start law school. And actually, there's another one that I forgot to mention that is the same type of thing. It's called the Weil Legal Innovators Program. So that one is also one that you can participate in once you've been accepted to law school, and you can do that one during the summer. The Weil Legal Innovators Program is a little more limited because it's they place you with certain companies and clients that Weil works with. And I think you can only participate in the program if you've been accepted to like a select number of law schools that actually works with Weil. But the SEO Fellowship is a lot broader. They work with a bunch of different law firms, and basically you will go intern with the law firm during the summer before you start law school. And there's also, they have a mentorship component, so you'll be given an attorney mentor. You'll just get to learn more about the workings of law firms. There's also internships with the state attorney general's office. So I don't know if you guys know what a state attorney general does, but basically the attorney general's office are all of the attorneys who are responsible in representing the state in whatever, lawsuits or business that the state conducts. So, so every single state will have their own state attorney general, and many of them will offer summer internships for college students. So I know the Texas Attorney General does. I'm sure plenty of other states also offer them as well. But so when you're representing a state, you could be involved in so many different types of suits. There could be, so one of my friends works for the Attorney General's office, and he was handling the cases involving contact tracing. So the state of Texas entered into a contract for contact tracing to deal with COVID-19, and a bunch of legislators decided to sue the governor because they said that he did not have the authority to enter into this contact tracing contract. And so there might be contract law involved. There might be, there's even, civil cases where, somebody is working on behalf of the state and they, destroy somebody's property or somebody gets hurt along the way. I mean, there's all sorts of, issues that pop up when you're working for the state attorney general's office. So it's also an opportunity to see just a broad swath of different areas of law. Let's see. There's also internships with the district attorney's offices. So, every city will pretty much have, city and county will have a district attorney. So they work for the city or county, and they generally have internship programs as well, where you can go and work with those lawyers or shadow those lawyers. There's also Senate and House internships. So for the US government, the US Senate, the US House of Representatives, they have their own internships available all the time for various senators and House members. And so there's 2 bulletins that you should subscribe to, the state and the Senate internship bulletin and the House internship bulletin. And those will let you know whenever new internship opportunities pop up. And they pop up literally like every week. Like sometimes the senators and like to hire really early. Some of them like to hire really late. Same with the House of Representatives members. So, you'll see postings all throughout the year. I mean, I've seen people post them like 1 or 2 weeks before summer. So, so I think there's still plenty of opportunities for you to find stuff if you haven't found something for the summer. There's also bar associations. So I had no idea what a bar association was when I was going to law school. So bar associations are literally organizations of lawyers. You have to be a lawyer to join a bar association, and it's basically a volunteer organization. There's lots of different types. So there's affinity bar associations that are focused on a particular interest group. So there might be like an Asian American Pacific, bar association. There might be a Latino bar association, or there might be there's also women's bar associations. So there's like the Texas Women's Lawyers Association, Dallas Women Lawyers Association. All of those are considered as bar associations as well. There's also bar associations and professional organizations that are targeted towards particular practice areas. So for example, I'm a part of the International Trademark Association for trademark lawyers. So there's bar associations for pretty much everything that you can think of, and many of them offer internships. So, so you might be helping the bar association advocate on a particular topic. Like I know the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association, NAPABA, was recently had interns helping with a project to combat the violence against Asian Americans that has been happening recently in California. So, there may be lots of different ways that you can get involved in bar associations, and it'll give you lots of access to tons of lawyers because it's literally associations made up of lawyers. So don't discount those. Those can be very, very valuable opportunities as well. Then there's also, so like I said, law firms generally don't have college level internship programs, but a few do. And I mean a very, very select few. So Davis, Wright, and Tremaine is one of them that has a pre-law diversity fellowship program. Their program is amazing because not only do you get to work with the lawyers, they offer LSAT prep, they offer like a stipend for their, summer interns. I believe they're paid. So, these fellowship programs can be very comprehensive. So same with the Sidley pre-law scholars program, which is also on the handout. That one, there's a LSAT prep component. You get to work with all of Sidley's attorneys, and you have a mentor, and there's all sorts of things that go into that. And then there's also the Ron Brown Scholars Program, which, so I think the Ron Brown Scholars Program actually is a nonprofit that works with a lot of different law firms. So you might have to see what they have available, but I know they work with Latham Watkins and I think a couple of other kind of white shoe UK firms. So, so definitely look into that as well. And then, if you don't want to just go work for, I don't know, an entity that employs lawyers, there's also ways that you can get an understanding, a better understanding of what law school is all about and what the legal profession is all about. So there's all these pre-law prep programs, these summer programs that you can do that'll just give you more of an understanding of like, what should you expect when you're going to law school? How do you prepare to get into law school? So there's the University of Houston Law Center Pre-Law Pipeline Program, the CLEO Pre-Law Summer Institute. CLEO is the Council for Legal Education Opportunity. They tend to target underrepresented minorities. So, most of their programs are, you have to be a diverse candidate in order to apply. But many of these, you don't have to be a diverse candidate. So, definitely look through the qualifications for each one of these. But all of these programs will give you some taste of what you're about to get into in law school, whether that's helping you with the law school application process, whether that's giving you an actual class. They might have a law school professor come and lecture for you. All of these programs are basically targeted to people who are really, really, really interested in applying to law school, and you just want to know more about the process. They might have some advocacy component to it. There might be like a competition involved where you're actually working on some sort of like legal issue. But yeah, those are kind of the pre-law prep programs. So there's a bunch of them offered by all sorts of different universities and nonprofit programs. So definitely look into all of those. LSAC also has their own pre-law undergraduate scholars program, which is hosted at lots of different colleges. So you might be able to just look at that and see which colleges near you offer the PLUS program. Also, during the summer, we usually offer a bunch of internships. You could participate in our internship program or in our mentorship program. If you're interested in just talking to a lot of lawyers and you don't know what area you're interested in yet, I would highly recommend, joining our mentorship program, because if you want to go work for, one of these organizations for like 6 to 8 weeks, that's great, but you're only going to get exposed to like one particular type of thing. And if you participate in the mentorship program, you could really talk to lawyers in all sorts of different areas. So it's really up to you. Like, how broad do you want to go? Like, how much do you know about the areas that you want to get into? If you already know which area of law you're interested in and you want to go work in that area, and make connections in that area, great. If you have no idea what any of these practice areas are like, or what any of these career paths are like, then I would recommend going into a broader program like maybe the Coro Fellowship or our mentorship program, where you could get exposed to lots of different types of lawyers. And then finally, there's you can network with lawyers and just find your own opportunities. And this is by and large how most college students get hired by lawyers. Most of the time it's you reaching out to lawyers in the areas that you're interested in, asking them to go to lunch or coffee, doing an informational interview with them, learning about what their firm does, and then just asking, after you get more comfortable. I wouldn't ask in the first meeting, but after you've talked to the lawyer for a few times and you say, hey, I'm interested in working for a law firm. I'd like to just get a little bit of experience. Do you happen to know of anyone who's hiring, or do you take, interns for the summer? Most lawyers understand that you guys are going to want to get some sort of experience, so they won't be offended by it. But I would say, wait until you get to know that lawyer better before you hit them up for a job. Don't just ask them outright in the very, very first meeting. That might offend them. But yeah, I think, by and large, you can reach out to lawyers at smaller firms, and they're going to do ad hoc hiring. They pretty much only hire as needed. So, flip through the phone book, or, do Google searches on the internet to figure out what are some local law firms in your area doing the practice areas that you want to be in. So if you are interested in family law or immigration or whatever, just, look up some local immigration firms. And it might be hard to get a sense of how big or small they are, but generally all law firms will have an about tab or an attorneys tab where you can go see how many attorneys are there. So, small boutiques generally hire ad hoc. So those would be 5 to 10 lawyers maybe, and 20 or so staff or less. Then The larger mid-sized firms are going to be anywhere from like 30 to I guess maybe 100 lawyers. And then like anything larger than 100, you know that they're a huge firm. And they're likely, the bigger firms usually only have college level programs if it's like specifically stated on their website. They usually won't bring in other people otherwise. Now you can get, I've heard plenty of college students ask, like, can I go get a job as a legal assistant? Yeah, you could, but it's very competitive because most law firms, when they hire legal assistants, they want to hire legal assistants who will stay. They are not interested in hiring legal assistants who are like transitory. So hiring somebody for the summer for a legal assistant job is probably not going to happen. Hiring somebody who like they know is probably going to go to law school, they're probably not going to want to hire somebody who's like in between, law school and undergrad. But if they feel like you're going to stay there for a long time, then they might be willing to hire an entry level person. So, I think legal assistant positions are harder to get than internship positions. And, if you do take a legal assistant position, be prepared to have that conversation of, oh, I'm planning to apply to law school at some point, and then it might be a little weird. So these are just some ideas for you as to ways to start getting some experience in working with lawyers. And now I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about making the most of your experience. But before I do that, I just want to stop real quick and just see, like, is this information what you're looking for? Like, do you have more questions? Does anybody, have other ideas that they want to share with the group?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I'm a senior, so I'll be graduating in a couple months. Do you think these things still apply to me? Like, I don't think I could do like a summer program if it specifically says like undergraduate. But yeah, I guess like what of these do you think could still apply to me?
Did you already apply to law school? Or are you going to take a gap year?
Sorry. Yeah. Gap year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think some of them, like the judicial internships, stuff like that, will probably still apply. I think you might not be able to do it for credit, but you'll still get the experience and they might still hire you. So I think, all of the programs that are like pre-law programs at universities probably wouldn't apply. But I mean, you could definitely still, find your own opportunities by talking to lawyers on your own. I would think that some of these internships, like at the Attorney General's office, district attorney, all of those might still be applicable. And I'm pretty sure that the Senate and House internships might still be open to you. So I think a lot of them would be. I would still look into a lot of them. I know Coro takes people after graduation a lot. I mean, Coro, people like want to compete for that fellowship so bad that they'll like defer law school to go do this fellowship. Like, that's how prestigious it is. Like, I had a student who got accepted to University of Pennsylvania and deferred for a year so that he could go do the Coro program. And so, I know for sure, he said that there were even, I think he said in his cohort, there were like 7 undergrads, 2 recent grads, and then 1 law student, and then 1 lawyer. So I think they'll take people all the way, on the other end. So yeah, you could definitely look into a lot of these programs still. Let's see.
Thank you.
If we have lawyer and judge friends, what's the appropriate way to reach out without making it seem desperate? Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that. So when you reach out to lawyers, what we want to know is that you care about us as human beings, that you're not just looking at our job title, okay? So when you reach out to a lawyer, you're trying to build a relationship with an actual person, okay? So invite them out to lunch or coffee and just, say like, hey, can I do an informational interview with you? Or if they're not comfortable doing lunch or coffee right now, be like, hey, can I do like a 15-20 minute Zoom interview with you? Where I just want to learn more about your journey, your career path. How did you become you? Like, I'm not looking for a job. I just want to learn more about you. And then once you get onto that call, you're going to ask them a lot of questions about like, how did they get into their current position, but learn more about the very beginning, especially because you're right now at the very beginning. So ask them like, when did you decide to go to law school? How did you decide to go to law school? Which ones did you even decide to apply to? And once you got into law school, how did you find summer jobs? How did you become interested in the practice area that you're in now? Because people have all sorts of reasons for finding their way into particular practice area. I practice trademark and copyright law. I don't know a lot of people who grow up wanting to be a trademark and copyright law lawyer because nobody really knows about that area of law. But then once you get into law school, you start getting exposed to all these different areas and you start seeing like, oh yeah, that's what this stuff means. And then you start getting pulled in, a certain direction. And you want to know more about how did that attorney find their way into that area so that you can really figure out like what interests you and would you make the same choices as that lawyer when put into that position? And you can really start to see yourself in them or decide like, no, I wouldn't do any of those things. I wouldn't be interested in those types of things. And that's totally okay. Finding out what you're not interested in is just as important at this stage as finding out what you are interested in. But just don't discount certain areas just because you think, at a glance that you wouldn't like them. For example, like tax law, like I didn't think that I would ever like tax law. And in fact, the first tax class that I took in law school, absolutely hated it. But then like one of my good friends, she practices state and local tax law, not federal tax law. And, she does a podcast and I started listening to one of her podcast episodes because she was featuring one of our other friends. I was like, man, the way that she describes it, she's so passionate about it. She's so interesting. Like maybe that would have been an area that I would have liked. But you have to just talk to a lot of people and just learn more about those areas. And then ask the attorneys for advice. So ask them, do you know of any organizations that I could join at the undergraduate level where I could start interacting with lawyers? Or are there articles or publications that you recommend that I follow or read to learn more about your particular practice area? Like, as an intellectual property attorney, there's certain blogs that are super well known in the IP community. And I would always tell my students like, hey, go start reading these blogs just so that you can start getting some exposure to what some of these issues are in this area. Ask them for advice, are there any other attorneys in your practice area that I should speak to that might have a slightly different career path than you? They might be able to introduce you to even more people, ask them for advice that's going to lead to natural follow-up. And you can use that natural follow-up to build your relationship with this attorney. And then after you've built the relationship with the attorney for a while, then when they understand more about your motivations, what you're interested in, and then you have shown them that you care about them as a human and that you don't just want a job from them, then you can ask them, hey, do you happen to know of any job opportunities in this area? Or, do you ever take college interns? Or is there anything that I could assist you with, during the summer? And then like show them what some of your skills are. Do you do a lot of social media activities? Could you help them with doing social media stuff for their firm? Do you write your own blog? Could you help them with writing a blog for the firm? Lots of lawyers, we're expected to do that kind of thing as part of our job. We're expected to blog on recent legal issues. We're expected to do social media outreach so that we can build business. So we sometimes need help with all of that. And yeah, you might not know the legal end of all that, but you might have those basic skills and you could work with the lawyer to get to know like what they have to do and learn more about, what's it like to blog for a law firm or what's it like to do social media work for a law firm, and they'll train you. So yeah, I think the name of the game when you're reaching out to lawyers is really building longer term relationships with them before you make an ask, before you ask for a job, before you ask for other things. Like, you have to build that relationship with them first. So find ways to keep interacting with them. Ask them for advice. Go take the advice. Once you've taken the advice, report back to them and say, hey, I went and took your advice. I read this article, or I went and attended this event, or I joined this organization and I learned so much more about this area. Is there anything else that you would recommend that I do? And when you do that, you show that lawyer that you're invested in this relationship, that you actually went and took action based on the advice that they gave you, and that you will follow up afterwards, and that you're diligent and responsible and accountable, all things that, guess what, make a great intern. So like, I think it's really important to show them the skills that you have. If you do blog or do run your own Instagram channel or whatever it is, mention those things, that you have these skills, so that they have a better understanding of what you're capable of. So that's my advice. And when you make the most of your experiences, like, if you go do an internship with the Senate and all you do is just run around Capitol Hill enjoying yourself, staring at the sights and, doing whatever your senator tells you, but then keeping your head down and not really talking and engaging with all the other people around you, you're not really making the most of that experience. You're going to walk away and, maybe you do keep in touch with that senator, maybe not. And then 3 years down the line, he's not going to remember you anymore, or she's not going to remember you anymore. And then that experience just doesn't mean all that much to you. Now, if you spend your internship connecting with your senator, doing an informational interview with them, really understanding what motivates your senator, what issues are they interested in, learning about all those issues, researching on your own, then, going to talk to other people who have those same passions, find out, who are the other senators that share these interests, go talk to them, find out why they're interested in these things, really network with as many lawyers as you can and politicians as you can while you're in that position. Now you've gained a lot out of that experience, right? So whatever experience you take, it's up to you to make the most of it. So it's up to you to get to know the lawyer you're working for. Don't just like do the work, the substantive work, and not actually get to know the people. Like, you're not serving yourself by doing that. So be intellectually curious, chase down different avenues, get to know all the people who work with you. And, I would say do reflections about your experiences every single week. Sit down, force yourself to write, even like 5 to 6 sentences about what did you learn that week? What sorts of things could you do the following week that will make it even more impactful for you? What were some of the really interesting things that you learned about this week? By the end of your internship, if you sit down and do it every single week, you're going to have this collection of all of these experiences that you've had. And you're going to realize like, oh yeah, I learned a lot during this internship. And then write like a cumulative reflection that you can post on LinkedIn or that you can post somewhere, so that other people understand what you got out of it. I always find, these reflections on internships on LinkedIn, and I think that's so impactful because most of the time, if you just write, fill out the little work experience section, and it's just like 3 bullets, like, wrote legal memoranda on blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't tell me all that much. I just don't feel like you really got much out of the experience. But if you have like a full reflection that explains like, oh, I talked to all these fascinating people, I learned about all of these issues, I learned how to do legal research in this way, I learned how to I wrote 20 blog articles on intellectual property, whatever it is, then it's like so much more impactful for the person who's reading it. Then they feel like, okay, you actually got something meaningful out of this experience. So yeah, don't forget to get to know the people that you're working for. Ask them about their legal journeys. Don't just ask them about the work that you're doing for them, but understand like, why are they doing the type of work that they do? What do they enjoy about it? Do they enjoy it? Ultimately, when you're getting this legal experience, your goal is trying to figure out if at the end of the day, what you want to do is be an attorney. And if you don't really understand what their lives are like, then you're not going to be able to really figure that out. I mean, take a close look at the people that you're working with too. Are they miserable? Are they happy? Do they look like they like doing what they're doing? Because if not, do you really want to go do that for 40 years? Like, probably not. So, like, really get to know the people that you're working for and figure out, is this an area of law that I could see myself doing day in, day out? The jobs of different types of lawyers can be drastically different. The job of somebody who goes to court every day, who works like, somebody's working for the attorney general's office and, that lawyer is litigating every single day. Their lives look very different than like me, who's in private practice. I work for a private law firm and I pretty much never go to court. So I think it's really important to get to know like all these different areas of law and what they really involve, because your life as that type of lawyer may be totally different than the lives of the other lawyers that you know. So definitely, take detailed notes throughout all of the work assignments. Whenever you're working for anyone, during your meetings with that person, take very, very detailed notes and, save them up in a place that's like easy for you to refer to. And then make sure that like, if there's action items or something that come out of that meeting, that you're following up with that attorney. Attorneys want people who are going to be able to anticipate the next step. So if you hear your attorney mention like some sort of action item, like figure out like who's responsible for that action item. Is it your attorney? Is it you? Is it, support staff? Like who's responsible for that thing, and help make sure that that thing happens. So, it's very, very important as you're in these work environments to understand like what are the things that are going to make people remember you. What are the things that are going to make people know that you're like a good worker? So make sure that you're keeping detailed notes. Also start keeping a list of contacts that you're making during these work assignments. Figure out like the first day, who are you working with? Who is the attorney? Who's the legal assistant? Who's the administrative assistant? Who's who, right? Figure out who all these people are. Learn what their roles are. And while you're a student, take advantage of the fact that you're a student, that you can rely on that, that inexperience. Like you can always go up to say, to a legal assistant or someone like, hey, I'm kind of brand new to this world. I'm still really green. I'm trying to figure it all out. Would you mind telling me a little bit more about your role and like how you interact with the attorneys and kind of like what I can do to support you all? Showing that sort of initiative is really, really important. And understanding all the different roles in a law firm, because like the attorney is only one role, but there might be 20 other different types of roles. And so like understanding how all of those dynamics work is really important. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up in the chat box here. Let's see. Okay. What if you didn't really do anything except administrative tasks? Okay, that's your fault. You only did administrative tasks because you should ask for, more responsibility. If all they have you doing is filing, faxing, and copying documents, that's okay. But like, if you have aspects that you come across that you're interested in, like you need to make sure that you express an interest in other things. Like, hey, I noticed that like you guys were talking the other day and on this case you kind of need somebody to do XYZ. Like, do you mind if I sit in on this meeting to like learn more about it and see what I can do to help? I think that you really do need to make the most of whatever experience you have and figuring out like what are some other substantive things that you can do. At the very least, even if you are just faxing, copying, and filing documents, get to know the attorneys. Like just, take them out to dinner or just sit them down for, one lunch or something and just ask them, those questions. Like learn about them, learn about why they're doing what they're doing. Even if you don't get to do meaningful work product, you can turn those relationships into so much more in the future. The relationships are what's worth it. It's not the, menial filing stuff that you're going to be doing, but it's really, starting to build your professional network, because ultimately you're going to be in the legal profession for probably a long time. You're going to start running into the same types of people, and the longer term relationships that you have, the stronger those relationships are, the more they will serve you. So like, view this as a way to get your foot in the door, start interacting with attorneys, start building relationships with those attorneys. Even if it's not the meaningful substantive work that you want to be doing, you can still be building your relationships with all the people around you. So that's my advice on that one. All right. How many internships do you think somebody should do before going to law school? As many as it takes for you to figure out what it is that you want to do in law. I think honestly, you need to have a good idea of which practice areas you're interested in before you go to law school. For example, when I was thinking about going to law school, I told you I didn't, really understand anything about this. So I cold called a bunch of attorneys just to try to find out more about their practice areas and do informational interviews with them. And eventually, I connected with an attorney who took me under his wing. He mentored me, and he wanted to help connect me with other lawyers. So he introduced me to lawyers from lots of different practice areas I had no idea even existed. Real estate lawyers, bankruptcy lawyers, people who were clerking for federal judges. People who were doing tons of different types of areas. And I ran into an intellectual property attorney. And I came from an advertising background. So trademark and copyrights were interesting to me. I was like, oh, branding, like I understand that. And so I started talking to that lawyer more about what he did. And that was an area that I started to develop a passion in. And eventually that lawyer asked me, hey, Angie, which law schools are you applying to? And I was like, oh, I'm applying to the top 15 law schools. That's what everybody applies to, right? And he looked at me and he just said, that's not going to work. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, trademark and copyright law is a super, super small practice area. And not a lot of law schools teach programs that are focused in trademark and copyright law. So if you really want to go work in IP, there's certain law schools that are really well known for IP. And our law firm, which was like a massive law firm, he said, our law firm goes and actually does on-campus interviewing where we seek out students from these schools at only 8 law schools. And so he gave me the list of 8 law schools, and I had only applied to 1. And so the rest of them were not on that top 15 list. And so I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there were super niche areas of law that not all law schools teach well. But if you're interested in emerging areas of law like privacy, like cannabis law, like entertainment law, areas that are going to be smaller, then there's only going to be a handful of law schools that have programs that are targeted in those areas. And so it was really important to me to talk to a lot of professionals, because only people who have been in the industry can tell you that. Like, there's no amount of internet research that you can do to figure out, like, is corporate law a large area or a small area? Is intellectual property law a large area or a small area? Like, you have to just talk to lawyers in that area, and they will tell you, like, this is a big area, this is a small area, this is how you get into this area, and then they'll be able to tell you, these are the certain law schools that are really strong in this area. These are the certain law schools that don't really, have a lot of pull in this area. Like, for example, here in Texas, Baylor is known as a very heavy litigation school. If you want to be a trial lawyer, you go to Baylor. And that's what they're known for. Like, if you want to be a corporate lawyer, you go to SMU. If you want to go into IP, you go to Texas A&M. Those are areas that are like practitioners. We know that the local law schools are known for that. And so, like, if you want to know what the reputation of the local law schools are, you talk to lawyers about it. So I think you should take as many internships or fellowships or whatever that you can, or work for as many lawyers as you can, until you start to figure out what you're interested in. And then once you know, like, what you're interested in, and have a few practice areas or maybe one practice area in mind, then you can narrow down, like, your search on what law schools to apply to, what programs that you want to look for when you're in law school, what extracurricular activities do you want to do, what types of jobs do you want to get. Like, until you've narrowed it down that much, then I think you should still keep looking for opportunities. If that means taking a gap year, 2 gap years, 3 gap years, 4 gap years, I would say take as much time as you need to figure that out.
I know this is a little bit off topic, but what is your opinion on going to a law school that's maybe a little bit less prestigious, but like they're giving you more money versus going to like a top 15 law school with a little bit less money?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. So the right fit of law school is going to be different for everyone. Okay, so I went to University of New Hampshire School of Law, which, like I said, is a very strong intellectual property law school. It's virtually unknown for anything else. So I think it's like ranked like 85th overall or something. But they gave me an amazing scholarship. So, I mean, I went to law school, was able to like, keep my debt burden way down. I got a really good job after law school because I went to a school that really prepared me for the practice area that I was focused in. So, for virtually most types of legal jobs, you don't have to go to a T14 school, the top schools. If you want, I will say that going to a T14 school gives you much better chances at getting probably like Supreme Court clerkships or Court of Appeals clerkships or big law jobs. So if you want to do any one of those things, if you're telling me you want to go clerk for the Supreme Court of the United States, you got to pretty much go to Yale, Harvard, or Stanford. Like that's it. That's your choices. So that totally makes sense to me. But if you're telling me you want to just go be a public defender or you want to go just be a trademark lawyer, like things like that, and you're willing to practice in any variety of settings like mid-size or small firm or stuff like that, then you don't really have to go to a T14 law school. The T14 law schools are really good at placing people in big law. They're really good at placing people in prestigious judicial clerkships. So one thing that I didn't understand is, okay, so federal clerkships are generally seen as more prestigious than state court clerkships. I have no idea why this is, but that's just how the game is played. Now, at the federal court level, there's 3 levels, right? There's the district courts, federal district court, then there's the courts of appeals, which are the circuit courts, and then there's the Supreme Court. So people who clerk for federal judges are seen as like, I don't know, the cream of the crop in law school. So, and if you go, and this is like people who clerk for a judge after law school for those first 2 years after you graduate, you go and clerk full time for a judge. But most of the time you get into that, I don't know, the club by doing summer clerkships or summer internships during the summers in law school with federal judges. And that kind of gets you into the club. And then you're more eligible to be like a career clerk after you leave law school. If you clerk for a judge for your first couple years after you leave law school, lots of big law firms will want to fight for you to come to their firm. So they will pay you a signing bonus to go to their firms. So most first year lawyers don't get signing bonuses, but federal clerks sometimes do because they want you that bad. Now, if you go to a big law firm, basically the top 100, top 200 law firms in America based on revenues, that's what we call big law. They fight for top talent from the top tier law schools or the top, 5% or 10% from other lower ranked law schools. Those are considered like supreme talent, right? So, so they want to go and get the cream of the crop, and they're willing to pay top dollar for them. So they'll pay top salary, and they'll pay, if you're a judicial clerk, they'll pay this signing bonus. Now, the signing bonus for people who are at the district court level, the lowest level, is about $50,000. So like literally, they're going to hand you a check for like $50,000 when you sign on the dotted line to say, I'm going to come work there. That's a lot of money. Now, if you're at the Court of Appeals level, that's around $90,000 to $110,000 signing bonus. That's on top of your salary, right? Supreme Court level signing bonus, $400,000. So, like, if you're one of these people who went to law school to make a lot of money, those are kind of the, those are the reasons why you would want to go to a top T15, T14 law school so that you can get into these lucrative positions. But if you want to just like, for me, like being an intellectual property lawyer, and I'm willing to work in lots of different varieties of settings, whether it's small law, big law, medium size, like you could go to any number of law schools that would serve you well. in doing that. You would just want to find a law school that is focused in that practice area. Now, for some people, practice area might not matter. Maybe they're interested in something very broad like corporate law or criminal law or immigration. Then there's probably dozens of law schools in the nation who could prepare you for that well. Then it's about money. How much money is it going to cost, right? So, for some people, location is the number one thing because maybe they have a family and they can't move. So, they've got to go to the local law school down the street, right? So, it's really going to be a different choice for everyone. But if you pick a very, very niche practice area, so after you go and talk to all these attorneys and you figure out the areas that you're interested in, you find out that the one that you're interested in is just super small, then you'll probably be more driven by the focus and the types of programs that each school has rather than geographic area or rather than prestige on the overall rankings, right? So those are my thoughts. The calculus is going to be a little bit different for everybody. But if you want to be in a broader area and you're not so concerned with the prestige, then, you could go to any number of law schools that are going to prepare you well. Now, I wouldn't go to a law school that's ranked way, way low on the scale or an unaccredited law school because your chances of getting a job afterwards are just not as good. Alrighty. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to time. So if anybody has more questions or if you have more ideas that you want to share with the group that I could add to this list, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. If there's internships that you've come across that you're no, I wouldn't want to do that, but maybe somebody else would, please send them over to me and I will add them to the list so that other people can have them. But I will circulate, and when we do the recording of this, I'll circulate the handout again to all of you guys in an email so that you can have it. But yeah, good luck to all of you. And if you have more, questions about this, feel free to reach out to me. So thanks so much.